Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson. Thanks for joining me for my weekly guitar blog. It's April 17th, 2016. This week we're going to do a lesson on lead guitar covering soloing on just one string. Now this week's question was sent in from Mick. He's out in Crescent City, California, and he wrote in with this email. Much of my guitar scales study so far has been within the positions using the patterns you supplied from your lesson called How to Practice Scales. This has helped me immensely, but I've noticed that a lot of famous players will solo on only one guitar string. To me, this is baffling because my scale knowledge is vertical. Can you explain how to get into soloing on one string? From Mick in Crescent City, California, USA. Well, thanks a lot for writing in, Mick. That lesson on how to practice scales is one of my older lessons, all the way back from 2009. But even though it's 7 years old, the material does not really go out of date. You know, what can happen though is that a guitarist can get a little bit locked up into playing scales vertically, you know, in the box shapes, as a lot of people call them, and just neglect spending the time for thinking about scales in a much more horizontal manner. And, you know, this brings us to, you know, playing a guitar solo on basically one guitar string. It's kind of a unique way to approach things, but what we can do is we can study how scales function much more horizontally that way. It's actually a great exercise to do this. It's limiting only to the one guitar string, and it's kind of a really different way to think through playing your lead ideas. So in this lesson, I'll be basically taking a look at how to approach playing guitar solos along just one string. All right, so the first thing we're going to cover is organizing a scale on just one string. You know, when we think like this, along going the neck very laterally, we're going to have to think slightly differently than as if we were playing something in position. So a bit different approach when you're just traveling very laterally along the neck. So we have to think differently. We're going to be playing differently. And what we're going to do for this example is we're going to focus on an E natural minor scale, just playing it on the third guitar string. So our tonic note, the E note itself, is going to be found on the 9th fret of the third guitar string. And in organizing this scale, I'm going to play off that 9th fret, and then I'm going to shoot down off of open G string, just play all along that third guitar string there, all the way to the 16th fret actually, and then jump back into the 9th. So the pattern that I have for you is going to go like this. Again. And you'll probably find yourself using different fingerings and thinking differently. You know, you'll really be going a little bit by ear and a little bit by muscle memory as you go travel along the string like that, because, you know, your ear is going to be guiding you and helping you hear where your next tone is going to fall. And then you're going to be using sort of some visual cues, might even be using your fingerboard, you know, marker dots and so forth, to just find out exactly where you're going to be jumping around and over to as you play through different single string scales and eventually start soloing this way, because it is going to involve a lot of jumps along to other regions of the neck's locations, and you know, you have to be thinking tone to tone and how you're doing those jumps and how the positions are going to operate. So what I'm going to do is take a short break, come back in a moment, and during the break I want to go and load up a set of chord changes in the key of E minor, and I want to just demonstrate a melodic example of how the single string, you know, all along one guitar string melody can actually operate. Right, next, let's take that E minor scale and create a third string melodic idea using it. The scale needs to be approached in a similar way melodically as we practice it along the neck in the first example. We're going to be taking advantage of the entire length of the string with only horizontal movement going on, and it's going to allow us to have some interesting jumps along the span of the fingering board and just, you know, thinking about the scale in a lot of different ways. And another concept is that there's a really cool aspect to our solos in taking advantage of open strings found in the underlying key. And in the case of the third string, that's a key of E minor, we do have the opportunity to use the open G third string within any of the melodies and the solos that we do. Always keep this kind of thing in mind when you're designing your melodic ideas, because it can add a very cool effect into your lines. So the first thing I want to do is I want to introduce this melody that I've come up with. It's going to be kind of like our foundational melody idea. I'm just going to play it down for you. You can follow along on the on-screen tab. It goes like this. I do have some chord changes in the background. The chord changes are really simple. It's just E minor, then it goes G to C, then it comes in against an A minor chord, and then a G to D. Right? So those chord changes are already in my loop pedal. I've got them ready to go. I'm going to fire out the loop pedal, play the melody down a couple times, and then I'm just going to improvise around a little bit, have some fun with this along one string theory that we're doing here. So here we go. So as you can tell, is a lot of different kinds of sounds you can get out of having just a single string that you're focusing on. One of my favorite things, you probably noticed me do it a couple times there, is to have that pedal idea off the open, so you have the G in the background. It's a very cool sound. Another thing I like doing a lot is moving along the string with some kinds of sequencing concepts, So just moving along the string, taking advantage of upper tones, moving into the lowers, countering with some more uppers, down to some more lower tones, countering back and forth. It's a very cool sound, and it's kind of a neat linear concept. You can even kind of do that just with one finger along the string. And because the E minor chord is containing both the root as well as both the minor third of G and a perfect fifth of B, you can find me a lot of times, you probably caught there, I was going into B a lot, the perfect fifth of the chord. So it's a very nice sound. You can go into the G tone a lot, moving in that one. You also probably caught there too, I was doing some bending ideas. It's a very cool sound, to take advantage of. And you can bend into the root even. It's a very neat sound to do that too. So a lot of advantages to the single string work, but there's still one more concept I'd like to cover with you yet as well. So let's go and move into that next. Well, the next idea I would like to work through has to do with taking a linear single string scale and having it function under a different harmony. Now, I need to be very clear on this approach since its function over a progression will be reliant upon ghosting over notes that aren't actually in the correct key. So what we need to be very focused on here is how we're going to apply the scale. The idea is that we're going to be thinking of one key's scale. For our example, it's going to be D major scale, but we're going to be using it in a different context. We're going to be taking it over a top of another key signature. In this case, we're going to be using G major. And if you're wondering how in the world this would work, it's due to the fact that these two keys only have one note's difference between them. Plus, the fifth mode of G major is D mixolydian. If you're familiar with mixolydian mode, you know that it has a lowered seventh. And what happens is basically in the D major scale, our C sharp drops down and becomes C natural. Once that happens, we have all the same notes as, of course, G major, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be avoiding the C natural altogether, and we're going to be trying to inject C sharp, which is part of D major scale's notes. Now, this might seem really different, for people who are not overly familiar with modes or how other options of modes can work when you're developing your chops. But, what I want to do first is just take a step back. We're going to learn the D major scale all across the 4th guitar string. So we're going to be working out of this layout as coming from the open 4th string D. And then we're going to move along the neck, go all the way up an octave to the 12th fret D. So if you want to follow along on the on-screen tab, it goes like this. And then we're going to go a little higher. And then just bring back around into the 12th fret D tone one more time. So here's that scale again. So you can see right away, when you're using single string melody and you're just flowing along, just using one guitar string, it's almost like, it just starts becoming melody and almost like you're soloing. You're not even really thinking about playing it as a scale. You're almost just thinking about improvisation with it or just composing something, So that's our first step. We're not going to go too much further than that in the beginning here. Then right now I'm going to take a short break and I'm going to come back in a moment, and after, we're going to be going through learning a melody and improvising a little bit with this as well. But I want to take a moment out so I can record some chord changes in the key of G major, and then we're going to mess around with injecting D major scale notes over top of G major harmony. It's going to be really interesting. All right, now let's work out a melody line using the D major scales notes over the sound of a simple 1-4-5 chord progression in the key of G major. Now, keeping in mind that the C sharp scale tone does not exist in the key signature of G major, we're going to need to be very careful of the use of it. In fact, for the most part, we're just going to be more or less avoiding any C notes altogether, even the C natural, aside from some quick ghosting over the C sharp. And we're going to use that at the start of the line, and we're going to have some of that going on, of course, when I do some improv on that. And that's really just going to be due to my wanting the overall sound to neither be really one of that direct D major direction or any kind of D mixolydian direction. I just want to have the harmony flow, so that the G major scale really has its day in the sun here. And the D major scale, it's pretty much all the same notes as G major, but that one tone, that C sharp, I'm just going to inject it in there kind of as a ghost note, like I said, and it's going to be really kind of a neat idea. Now, what I want to show you first, though, is I do have a predisposed melody here. I want to go into that and give you a chance to check this out. I'm going to play it for you and give you a chance to listen to it. It goes like this, so you can check it out on the on-screen tab. You can tell there how it's pointing into the D tones, and it does start on a G though, so it's going to connect well off that first chord. And I want to talk through the chord changes as well. We're going to have a G major, and then D, and then C, G, and then D again. So that's going to be going through that 1-4-5 out of the key of G major, C, and D. Okay, so I'm going to fire up the loop pedal. I'll play the melody that I've composed, and then after that, I'm just going to do some improvising and just have some fun. So here we go. All right. Gives you a chance there to hear how this thing can actually operate over top of that nice G major progression. Now, like I said, it's pretty much all the same notes when you're in D major, except for that C sharp. But you notice probably how I was using that C sharp, just as ghost note ideas. Here's just sort of a filler thing, and I wasn't playing C natural. I never hit one time did I hit C natural. I was avoiding it like the plague, and I was just focusing on the tones that are congruent to the G major, which is basically everything except for that C sharp. And the C sharp, I was well aware of. I was really at the peak of my mind, so that I could add it as that little ghost note concept altogether. Now you're probably wondering, well, what does this kind of thing have to do with playing along one single string? The thing about something like this is this would be very difficult, especially from, let's say, teacher to student perspective, for me to just say to a student, I want you to play some D major sounds over top of this G major progression, and you got all these D major scales all over. The student's probably wondering, well, wow, where am I gonna play? How am I gonna set this up? How am I gonna avoid all these C sharp tones? It can be kind of overwhelming. But if you're just dealing with one guitar string, and that's, it's only going to have one location for the C sharp. It's just right there. You could even, when you hear it against the sound of the G, it sort of sounds outside, doesn't it? But, hitting that and come around that as a ghost note on just that one location, it's the only place on the neck we've got it. So you're focused more. You're able to start phrasing with it better. It's easier to track because it's only in that one spot. So this is another advantage of playing along one guitar string, is you can add in some of these ghost notes. And however you want to think of that C sharp, maybe, some people might think of that as you're injecting this sharp 4 sort of G Lydian mode sound over top of this progression. It doesn't matter how you think. I don't care. Think about it however you want. But the idea is it's more manageable to do with this single string concept approach. So take this stuff to heart. It's a really neat way to practice and play guitar and get into some more advanced concepts like you saw with injecting the D major sound over top of the G major harmony. So I hope you have some good success with this. It's a neat thing to practice. Learning to take advantage of the unique sound of playing a scale along one guitar string can open up some pretty cool new ideas in your lead playing. Looking at the guitar more horizontally like that, and also breaking away from all the common in position box patterns that a number of people start with and learn in the early days and kind of get really devoted to. It's going to be really something for your playing to escape that and just think very differently. And it's always really good to limit yourself. And the guitar offers us the ability to play vertically and horizontally, but very few students of the instrument spend much time learning to play solos in a very linear way like you would do if you just played on one guitar string. Too many guitarists get hooked on playing only in the box patterns, and so when a more linear approach like this is introduced, there's generally a really eye-opening shift that takes place for the student, and there's a realization that sometimes the less is more concept can be a great way to work on your lead playing and soloing. So experiment with these scales and experiment with soloing this way, because it's really going to offer something very new into your soloing and your sound overall. Anyway, that's all the time that I have for today. As always, I want to say thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and if at all possible, please consider a small donation to help fund the Guitar Lessons project here. Every little bit counts. Otherwise, have yourself a really great week, and I will catch up with you next time. Bye for now. If you'd like to learn the modes and really get an understanding how they can be used musically to write songs, play a solo, or compose melody lines, then you're in luck. My ebook, Using the Major Scale Modes, is a comprehensive manuscript outlining exactly how modes are used both in harmony and to compose melodic ideas. Over 50 pages of scale patterns, example progressions, and music theory all create one of the most comprehensive methods on the modes available. Using the Major Scale Modes is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com.